In Mexico, a new massacre in the state of Zacatecas claimed the lives of 5 people. In Spain, the health professionals take to the streets to reject the public health policies of the Community of Madrid. And in Turkey, at least 6 people were killed by an explosion in central Istanbul. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Mexico, a new massacre in the state of Zacatecas claimed the lives of at least 5 people. Local authorities reported that the event took place in a sports field in the capital of the state of the same name, in the nation's center north. A group of unknown gunmen opened fire on the people present. The spokesperson of the state peace building table detailed that all the victims of the attack were male. In the meantime, security forces began an operation to try to locate and arrest those responsible for the massacre, while the agents of the State Attorney General's office began the corresponding actions in order to advance in the investigation of the crime. Bolivian President Luis Arce called for peace in the nation after confirming the date of the population and housing census for March 2024. During a message to the nation, the Bolivian president assured that the national census will be carried out on March 23, 2024, and that the distribution of resources will be made in September of that year, which represents a month ahead in the delivery of resources compared to what was expected. Arce also called on the people to keep the peace, mainly referring to the recent violence in the department of Santa Cruz. The Bolivian head of state also assured that his country is working to carry out a reliable and safe census, so the decision on the date of the census was taking into account the results of the technical commission.
In our effort to carry out a reliable and safe, technical and inclusive census, after receiving the recommendations of the technical commission with the unwavering will to support and bet on dialogue in compliance with the responsibility that you, Bolivians, entrusted me in October 2020, but also with the effort to seek rapprochement in the points of view, I would like to announce 2 decisions. First, the national population and housing census will be carried out on March 23, 2024. Second, based on these preliminary results, the distribution of resources will be made in September 2024, 1 month earlier than what we had initially proposed. I ask that your reflection emphasize not what separates us, but what brings us closer and what is most important for the entire population.
President Luis Arce also noted the fact that the country's census was used as a pretext to generate violence and instability in the nation.
In no other country has a technical act such as a census become a political pretext to destabilize the government and confront the population. But unfortunately, in our country, some people have politicized the carrying out of the census process, which is a technical process, as we have always stated. And in this, we agree with almost all the authorities of our country, with only one exception.
The Bolivian head of state also referred to the acts of violence that took place in the department of Santa Cruz, among which he highlighted the attack on the headquarters of a labor union.
In 21 days, the Bolivian family has mourned with 4 deaths, hundreds of wounded, a complaint of gang rape, aggressions against women, and enormous damage to our economy. Today, criminal groups are trying to set fire to Santa Cruz. They are looking for an escalation of racist attacks and more death, and to carry out a coup d'etat again, as in the year 2019.
The United Socialist Party of Venezuela and its youth renew grassroots structures under the principles of organizing, uniting, and summing up in order to triumph. On Saturday, the PSUV renews its municipal parish and state teams, thus ending the phase of strengthening the base structures of the largest political force in the country. The process began at 2 p.m. local time and ended at 6 p.m. local time with the nomination of the teams that make up more than 14,000 base structures of the party. The preparatory meetings for this period began on Thursday with mobilizations of the militancy with posters and murals, as well as several swearing-in ceremonies throughout the country. The first stage of this process began on August 13th and ended on September 3rd with the election of the heads of streets, communities, and Bolívar Chávez battle units. In Chile, President Gabriel Boric announced this Friday a plan to return lands claimed by the Mapuche people. The Chilean leader also announced the creation of a special commission whose duty is to propose mechanisms to clearly determine the demand for land by the Mapuche communities, as well as to establish mechanisms and concrete deadlines to repair the debt with those indigenous communities. Boric assured that the Commission will not be in charge of making diagnoses and that it will take recommendations from national and international organizations. The head of state added that a study will be carried out to consider the land seized from the 19th century onwards, although he clarified that it will not be possible to restore all the lands. Democrats won control of the U.S. Senate with 50 seats, following the victory of lawmaker Catherine Cortez Masto in the state of Nevada. Following Democrat Mark Kelly's victory in Arizona, this result gives the victory to the Blues, regardless of what happens in Georgia's runoff election to be held on December 6, leaving that Vice President Kamala Harris has the vote to break any tie. Cortez Masto, the first Latina in the Senate, was considered the most vulnerable due to the popularity of the Republican Adam Laxalt. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which we'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. A Brazilian government report reveals that deforestation in the Amazon reached historic records in October. Environmental organizations warn that it is the worst figure for the month since 2015. On Friday, the Climate Observatory disclosed data from the National Institute of Space Research that point to an increase in deforestation alerts by 44.65%. The report details that only between August and October of this year, the accumulated deforestation reached 4,200 square kilometers, a figure that stands out with the 2,779 square kilometers deforested in the same period in 2021. Meanwhile, experts warn that deforestation in 2021 reached more than 13,000 square kilometers, representing an increase of 73% in relation to 2018. Egypt's ambassador to the COP27 climate summit, Wael Abdul Mahdi, said negotiations are progressing with divergences between developing countries and more developed states. At a press conference in the framework of the United Nations Climate Summit, the diplomat pointed out that there is a difference of perspectives on what came out of Glasgow regarding the threshold of warming in the framework of the climate crisis the world is going through. He cautioned, however, that such differences would not compromise responsibility for emissions mitigation, something on which he said there is already consensus. As for the different views on loss and damage, the diplomat noted that negotiations are proceeding well, with the main conflict being over whether to create a fund exclusively dedicated to climate reparations or whether to provide funding through an existing mechanism. In Egypt, Cuba called on the nations of the world to make a greater effort to reduce emissions of polluting gases under the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities. On Saturday, in the framework of the 27th Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, COP27, the Cuban Minister of Science, Technology and Environment, Elba Rosa Perez, during an interview with the Egyptian television station Al Balad News, called on the countries of the world to assume a greater commitment to fight against climate change while ratifying her country's efforts to protect the environment. Climate organizations denounced that there is currently no credible pathway to reach the 1.5-degree limit. On Thursday, members of the United Nations Environment Programme denounced that the international pledges to reduce harmful emissions offer little hope of averting climate disaster. In a statement, the organization pointed out that despite legally binding pledges made at the Paris 2015 Climate Conference to prevent average temperatures from rising more than 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, only cuts of less than 1% of projected greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 have been achieved, which is a failure and insufficient to mitigate the situation. In Spain, health professionals take to the streets to reject the public health policies of the community of Madrid. Neighbors and health personnel of Madrid joined this Sunday a march against the plan of destruction of primary care promoted by Isabel Díaz Ayuso's government, according to demonstrators. The plan proposes a reorganization of out-of-hospital emergencies, and they denounce what they consider illegalities on the part of Madrid's health ministry, which is forcing an abusive minimum service of 100%. The different social groups of the protest assure that they are not only defending the right to public health care, but also the right to a fairer and more democratic society. In the United Kingdom, the gross domestic product fell by 0.2% in the third quarter, marking the beginning of a recession that is expected to last at least a year. Local media reported that electricity and gas bills doubled in the country in a year, this while interest rates on home loans quadrupled to 6%, leaving inflation for September at 10.1%, severely affecting the purchasing power of citizens. Household spending fell by 0.5% in the third quarter, particularly sharp drop in clothing, furniture and household goods. The media reported that the general opinion among United Kingdom economists is that the next few quarters will be negative for the nation, while the Bank of England estimates that the recession could last close to 2 years. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In Turkey, at least 6 people were killed and 38 others injured in an explosion in central Istanbul. According to local media reports, the explosion occurred in the afternoon hours local time in Taksim Istiklal Street, located in the Beyglu district of downtown Istanbul. Authorities said a large number of firefighters and medical teams arrived at the scene to attend to the victims. In the meantime, the police are carrying out investigations to clarify the facts. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan denounced and condemned the attack. Ukrainian forces attacked several localities in Kherson province on Saturday amid an evacuation of civilians, leaving at least 1 dead and 3 wounded. Local authorities said that about 200 civilians were in the town of Kakhovka when the Ukrainian armed forces launched an artillery attack. They further stated that the Ukrainian army was aware of the presence of civilians, including children, women and elderly people. They also denounced that on Friday, the same also launched artillery attacks against houses in this region recently acceded to Russia as part of the maneuvers that tried to impact the hydroelectric power station of Kakhovka. Ethiopia's government and Tigrayan rebels agreed Saturday to facilitate immediate humanitarian access to all in need in war-stricken Tigray and neighboring regions.
The press release of the senior commanders meeting between the government of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia and the Tigray People's Liberation Front agreed to facilitate unhindered humanitarian access. Nairobi, Kenya, 12 November 2022. The African Union Commission concludes the meeting of senior commanders following the signing of permanent cessation of hostilities agreement between the government of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia and the Tigray People's Liberation Front on the 2nd November 2022. The parties have agreed to facilitate unhindered humanitarian access to all in need of assistance in Tigray and neighboring regions.
The 40th and 41st Asian Summits conclude in the capital of Cambodia on Friday afternoon with two statements issued on realizing Asian connectivity beyond 2025 and Asia's 55th anniversary. In a statement regarding the post-2025 Asian connectivity agenda, Asian leaders said that they will strengthen cross-sector cooperation and improve physical and institutional linkages and people-to-people exchanges to support the Asian community building process. They also pledged to proceed digital transformation of smart cities, highlighting climate change adaptation, infrastructure construction, and sustainable development. Asian countries will also build effective partnerships by enhancing institutional capabilities to jointly address challenges through connectivity. The statement on Asia's 55th anniversary said that over the past 55 years, Asian countries have worked with partner countries to maintain peace, prosperity, stability, and development in the region. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met with his Vietnamese counterpart Bui Thanh Son on the sidelines of the Asian Summit in Phnom Penh on Saturday. According to the Russian Foreign Ministry, Lavrov also met with the foreign ministers of Indonesia, Laos, and Thailand. In Syria, armed groups killed Nabil al-Hadidi on Saturday, mayor of the town of Alma in the province of Deraa, about 100 kilometers south of the capital. According to activists and local media, the gunman on a motorcycle fired at the official when he was in front of a local bakery, shooting him several times. This governorate has witnessed dozens of attacks and assassinations against military personnel, prominent social figures, and deserters who joined the reconciliation and returned to the ranks of the Syrian army. According to analysts, the gangs committing these attacks aim to disrupt the results of the reconciliation process that this government witnessed and strengthen the presence of state institutions in the territory. The Palestinian government demands Israel to resume peace negotiations to end the occupation in the territories. President Mahmoud Abbas pointed out to the danger which the Palestinian people are exposed due to the Tel Aviv government's tactics and its interest in continuing unilateral measures that undermine the two-state solution. During a telephone conversation with Joseph Borrell, the European Union's representative for foreign policy and security, President Abbas reported on the recent escalation of Israeli violence in Palestine and therefore urged the resumption of a political process to end the occupation of the borderlands. We have a disclaimer to announce. Our Facebook page has been hacked and currently displaying content out of our agenda and against our social, moral, political, and informative premises. We stress that teleSUR English is not responsible for these posts that violate Facebook's community standards. We hope this company will give us back our credentials as soon as possible and resume our regular posts on that social media. We have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.